Okay, now this is factoring trinomials, part 2. And what we're going to be looking at is trying to factor trinomials that have some kind of a number in front of the x squared. So you can see we've got the bx, the x term, we've got a constant at the end, and we've got some sort of x squared with more than just x squared. There's some sort of a number other than 1 in front of the x squared term. Now, as far as prep work, you have to consider still taking out a greatest common factor. Okay, if there's a greatest common factor, you want to get that factored out. You also want to make sure that the thing is in, descending order. Okay, and again, if there's any kind of a negative in front of the, say you had negative 3x squared, that it would be a lot easier for you to factor out the negative. Just to work with positives makes life so much easier. Okay, so that's kind of the prep work that you want to be doing with these types of trinomials. And just to kind of show you where these come from. Remember, you can always just grab an example here of what an answer would look like. You know, that's kind of where we're going with this. We'd like to see two binomials and multiplied together. If we were to expand all this out, we would want to see our trinomial that we are asked to factor. In this case, it would be 10x squared. Then we would have plus 8x, and then plus 15x, and at the end plus 12. And of course we'd put our two middle terms together, and this would be what the trinomial in the original question would look like. The question would say factor this trinomial, 10x squared plus 23x plus 12. So how would we do that? What if we were trying to work back into this form here? Okay, you can see this is a lot more complicated than the previous trinomials, and it's because of this number in front of the x squared. It makes life a lot more difficult for us. But again, do your prep work, greatest common factors, take out any negative if there is a negative in front of x squared. So once all that stuff is done, how do we proceed? And we have a system here which I like to call the magic numbers system. So what you have to do is find these so-called magic numbers. Okay, and here's how they work. You take the term that's in front of the x squared, and you take the constant at the end, and you multiply them together. In this case, that gives us 120. And then you take a look at your term in the middle, in this case, positive 23. And in a similar sort of way as to what we did last time, we are looking for factors that make 120. These factors have to add up to 23. And what you now have to do is just run through all the different possibilities. You could try 1 times 120, but there's no way those will add up to 23. You could try 2 times 60, but they won't add up to 23. And you just keep going until you finally stumble across 8 times 15. So 8 times 15 multiplies together, makes 120, and also adds up to 23. Now, once we've got the numbers, really the difficult part in this factoring is over. All we have to do now is follow the following steps. We rewrite the trinomial, leaving the first term and the last term alone. But we change the plus 23x using our magic numbers. Okay, so instead of writing plus 23x, we write plus 8x and plus 15x. And it doesn't matter which order you put these numbers. I could have written the plus 15x first and then the plus 8x. It really doesn't matter. So I use my magic numbers, I break up the middle term, and then I take out the greatest common factor of the first two terms. Now that greatest common factor looks to be 2x. And then if I factor it out, 2x times 5x gives us our 10x squared. and 2x times positive 4 gives us our 8x. Okay, so I've taken out the greatest common factor of the first two terms. Now I do exactly the same thing for the last two terms. And I'll give you a hint. You're always going to get the same stuff in the brackets when you do this. So I always like to just start by writing out what's in the brackets, and then I kind of think my way backwards. 5x times what would give me positive 15x? And oh, that would have to be plus 3. And then I kind of check my work. Plus 3 times plus 4 is 12. So yes, those are now factored as well. And then the last step in this process is to group everything together. You've got your 5x plus 4. And what you're multiplying that by, well, you've got 5x plus 4 times 2x. So I go, okay, 5x plus 4 times 2x. And then over here, I've got 5x plus 4 times 3. So I go, 5x plus 4 times 3. And when you do that, you end up with your factored answer. Okay, so that's the process here of the magic numbers method. It will work. It is a little bit of memorization of the steps, but with a little bit of practice, you can blast through these very quickly. So let's do an example here and show you one in action. So let's say we have 28x squared plus 31x minus 5. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is analyze these magic numbers, try to find them. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take 28, the number in front of x squared, and multiply that by negative 5. Okay, so that gives me negative 140. And then the number in the middle is positive 31. Be very careful with the signs. You just can't afford to miss a negative or a positive here. It'll make everything messed up if you do. All right, so I got my I got my start to the magic numbers. So what I'm now looking for are factors that multiply together to make negative 140 that add up to 31. Now again, you would just go through quite a process of trial and error, basically. I could start off with, well, how about positive 1 and negative 140? And I can clearly see that would never add up to positive 31. I could try something like, let's see, negative 2 and positive 70. And okay, I get positive 68. I'm getting better. And eventually you keep working your way through it. You know, I would try 3 and 4 and 5. I just keep working my way through it until I finally get a pair that works. And the pair that works is 35 and negative 4. Okay, so if you go 35 times negative 4, you get negative 140. And if you add them up, you get positive 31. So I go, oh, great. I got my magic numbers. Now, let's put them to work. 28x squared, and I'm going to break up that middle term with the 35 and the negative 4. So it's plus 35x minus 4x, and then at the end, minus 5. I take out my greatest common factor, so I look at 28x squared and positive 35x, and I realize I think I can factor out a 7x. So that would leave me with 4x. Okay, 7x times 4x makes 28x squared, and 7x times positive 5 gives me the 35x. I'm expecting this to show up again, so I'm just going to write it out in brackets, 4x plus 5. And if I think backwards, the number I would have to have factored out, it's not much, but it is a negative 1. And then just to check that it works, negative 1 times positive 5 makes negative 5. It works. Now I'm just going to group everything together. I've got my 4x plus 5, and in the first situation it's timesing 7x, and in the second timesing it by negative 1. So there's my factored answer. And again, if I wanted to check my answer, all I got to do is expand out the brackets, making sure I get this trinomial. I will leave that to the interested student.